Hi, we're Nia and Marianne from Seren Health Coaching. We are metabolic health coaches who are passionate about good metabolic health for everyone. We also love to chat about all things health and to share as much information as we can with people who want to make changes to their lifestyle but aren't quite sure where to start. We're going to release a new episode every Friday where we talk about a different aspect of health. So do subscribe and let us know what you think. We'd also love to know what you're interested in too. So if there's something that you'd like us to have a chat about, do send us a message and we'll do our best to cover it soon. Hello, Marianne.
Hi, Nia. How are you today? And
I'm
what are
good.
we talking about?
Well, today I thought we'd talk about the placebo effect because,
Oh, I love the placebo effect.
yes, it's always been really fascinating to me.
Yes.
And as we were talking about things the other day, I went down a rabbit hole looking at some
Did you
products that were
now?
for sale.
Yeah.
And my
Oh.
cynical brain went, oh, this is into the placebo effect.
Yes.
Um,
But who cares as long as it works, Nia?
well, exactly. So I really do think that with this particular product that I saw that I stumbled
Yes.
upon was a menopause product, and I think,
Right.
um, unfortunately, because I mean, it's great that there's been lots more conversation about the menopause
Oh,
and lots more
obviously.
awareness.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because you have this big focus,
Yes.
it kind of gives people the opportunity to add things onto the market that they think will be
Yes.
beneficial.
Why do we not think of this? Right. So
I
what was the
know.
product? What
And
was the product?
they're really they're really expensive. So they're sort of £300
Oh.
wristband things. And I
Oh.
won't, yeah. Anyway, they say on their website that they are scientifically proven to help with
Yeah,
some of the
whatever that
symptoms of the
means.
menopause.
Yeah.
But when I go looking for the information about these
Yes, the
scientific
evidence.
studies, my cynical brain really does kick in then, because there's one study being used to prove a number of points with
Yeah.
very few participants and, very limited ability to actually prove that any of this really does work.
Okay.
But on the flip side of that, there
Yes.
are hundreds of reviews
Yes.
from people who say they really do.
Testimonials. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you argue this is not uncommon. I mean, you're taking one particularly extravagant device, I suppose, and
Yes.
we
Yeah.
are cynical, aren't we? Because that's the world we come from. So, but I still think for some people they might say this was worth the money because whatever you think and
It
whatever
works
the
for me.
science is, it's made them feel better in some way. And is this what we're talking about? Is this what
So
we call the
yeah.
placebo effect?
So yeah,
Okay.
we have known about the placebo effect for years, and it
Yes.
used to be sort of seen in quite a negative way. So say
Did
you're
it?
testing, yeah, so say you're testing a new medication, you
Yeah,
want to test your medication against people taking a placebo, so
you're
commonly a
right.
sugar pill.
Yeah.
But you would often find, really weirdly, that even if you were taking the placebo, that the patients taking the sugar pill would say, "Oh, my pain is getting better, and it's working for me." But we all knew that it was just a sugar pill.
But even when you told them that they were having the placebo, there's some studies that I've seen
Yes,
recently that even when you tell people that they're not actually getting the medication, they're getting a placebo, they still get a
a
positive
boost. Yeah,
effect.
we will
Isn't
come
that
on to that.
weird?
It is weird,
Hmm.
but that it is a well-known phenomenon.
Okay.
So the thing with the placebo effect, it's well known that even though you could say, well, it's just self-reporting, so people
Yeah.
just feel better, but
Yeah.
actually there have been physiological responses that change from a placebo effect. So people taking a sugar pill have seen benefits to their blood pressure, their heart rate has dropped, and their blood test results have actually changed.
That
Isn't
is
that mad?
incredible, isn't it? So
Yeah.
how does it work, do you think?
Well, it's still not really sure, but it is thought that there's a combination of factors. So there's some brain activity, so some
Yeah.
release of feel good chemicals, our
Okay.
endorphins and
Yes.
neurotransmitters like dopamine.
Yes.
And then, as you were saying, even when people know they're taking the placebo, there is an effect from the ritual of the treatment. So if you're in a
Okay.
study, you have to go to the clinic, you have to see a healthcare professional, you wear
Yes.
a white coat.
Someone's interested in you?
They pay you attention, they do some
Mm.
tests. There's something about having that attention and
Yes.
care being paid
Yes.
to you that also helps. So
I'm
There
fascinated by it.
Isn't it
Fascinated.
fascinating? Yeah. So, and then this is where it gets more exciting. So there was a study around migraine pain
Okay.
medication.
Which is a
So
huge problem for lots of
a
people.
huge problem for many, many people. And they wanted to test a new medication. So they had three groups of people. One
Okay.
who took the active medication,
Right.
and that was labeled with the name of the medicine. Okay.
Okay.
And I think there might also be some studies that prove if you have a particular name, the way you name
Yes.
medication also affects how you feel about it, but that's a
Yes.
different
Okay. So
story.
no pain will be better than painful.
Lots of
Yeah.
pain.
Whatever. Yeah.
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 And then one group took the placebo, which was labeled as a placebo, and then the
Okay.
third group didn't take anything at all.
Right.
And the results from that study discovered that the placebo was 50% as effective as the real drug to reduce the pain
Okay.
after a
So
migraine.
half as effective, but still more effective than no drug.
Taking nothing, yeah. And they said that this might be because the simple act of taking the
Yes.
medication, the
Yes.
ritual of treatment, even if we know it's not actually got an active ingredient in it, can make the brain think that the body is being
Okay.
healed.
Well, that sort of appeals to my logic because when
Yeah,
you take two paracetamol and you've got a pain, your expectation is that, and mine is that in 20 minutes
you'll
I'll
feel a bit
get
better.
some relief from the pain. And isn't just that ritual of thinking, oh, thank God I've got some paracetamol down me,
Yeah,
might well give you those neurotransmitter beginnings of whatever you're talking about that causes the actual relief of the
of pain.
symptom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it made me think back
Mm.
to so when I was working as a pharmacist, we did a lot of work around antibiotic use, and particularly
Yeah.
in the winter season, as you'll know, when lots of people come in with sore
Yeah.
throats and
Yeah.
and we trialed a thing, I think it was a national thing actually, but it's well known that people who feel very unwell enough to go and see a doctor about their symptoms,
Yeah.
often want that prescription back when you got a paper copy.
Yes.
Obviously, you
Okay.
don't now.
Because otherwise they feel shortchanged because they haven't actually got something to use.
Yeah, so it's a validation of your
Yes.
symptoms, isn't
Okay.
it? You are sick
Yes.
enough for the doctor to prescribe for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Um, So what we used to do, because you and I both know that the majority of bugs flying around that time of year are viral, and actually an antibiotic is not going to do anything for those
More
patients,
appropriate. Yeah.
and it's not appropriate, and
Yeah.
there's misuse and resistance and
Yeah.
all the rest of it. But so instead of giving them a prescription, we gave them the same size piece of paper, exactly the same size as a prescription, and it was called a non-antibiotic prescription. So it was saying you have
Right.
a virus, you
Yeah.
will get
Okay.
better. Here are some self-help tips that you can use to reduce,
So they were
your
still validated and getting some sort of help.
yeah. So you're still ill. You're still being
Yeah.
acknowledged that yes, actually you are poorly, and you
Yeah.
do need to take time off work, and you do need to care for yourself. And it's giving that attention and the care, and then not just dismissing them as well. You don't need antibiotics, so there's nothing wrong with you. So that kind of reminded me of
That's
that.
interesting. Yeah, some of my patients would not have bought that, I can tell you. Another little placebo, which isn't necessarily of the same ilk, was giving people prescriptions to hold. So, again, validating the fact that you're sharing uncertainty about whether they would need a medication or not. And
Mm,
therefore, you said, look, I'll treat you as an intelligent co partner in this. I'll share the fact that this might actually not be appropriate or necessary. And if it was me, I would really not want to take it unless I had to for really good
mm,
reasons. But
mm.
here you are, I'm going to trust you or entrust you with
A delayed
something that
script.
you can then decide to use. For me, and I mean, maybe that's my brain, I really like the idea of being entrusted to then decide. And I was less likely to want the medication than if I'd been flatly refused a request to
Mm.
treat my child's earache that they'd been up all night with screaming. And I think for me, the psychology is so, but it's not really placebo, but it's sort of along the same
It is the same line. So
lines.
interestingly, so the follow-up studies you did
Mm.
show, and anecdotally, I can tell you that
Yes.
when we were in practice, we rarely did see those delayed scripts, they
Yes, really
show,
interesting.
because you were right, it was
Yeah,
viral and it would have cleared up,
yeah.
and so therefore they didn't need it.
And they were less likely, interestingly, to ask again because the next time you shared the same thing, they might have actually trusted that they could go without the delayed prescription. And
Mm,
you almost set up this this valuable teaching tool
yeah,
where I would say, I wouldn't at this point, if this was my child, I would not use this medication because I think you're going to get away without it. But
mm,
I can share the fact that it's not possible for me to guarantee that this is not a bacterial infection. It might
yeah,
be appropriate to use this medication, but I'm treating you like an intelligent partner, and you're going to have the power. But for me, it was also a teaching thing, so that when they didn't need that prescription, the
mm,
the next time they were less likely to even consult, and they would say, "Okay, I'm going to wait 3 days because this is what I
before
did
I come.
before." Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
really interesting. Yeah.
really interesting. So I think it's really important to say that obviously placebo effects can only go so far. So
Yeah.
it's not going to
Of
shrink your
course.
tumor, it's
No.
not going to lower your cholesterol.
No.
Um, but they do work really well on the symptoms that are modulated by your brain. So
Okay.
pain, for example, is a really good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Um, as
Anxiety,
yeah,
those sort of things.
sort of
Yeah.
stress related symptoms, you can do it.
Yeah.
And some side effects of things like fatigue and nausea, they can be quite beneficial for that. But I just think
Yes.
it's fascinating that
I love it. Yes.
it sort of translates to engaging in this sort of way of taking care of yourself that
Yes.
actually provides some of the key ingredients of this effect. So, taking a
Yes.
medicine is so powerful in your brain as a cure.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but also, we can use this to help us with healthy living. So, taking care of ourselves by eating well. So, thinking about, okay, I need to eat the rainbow of vegetables. I need to eat a wide variety of vegetables because this is good for me. Kind of gives you that effect of carrying on to do that, or exercising, or meditating. They also have that
Yes.
attention to yourself, that emotional
Yes.
effect that
Okay.
is really powerful,
And
and
in
can help
in
you.
and in our culture, of course, when you look back, medication as you say, has been almost part of that self-care. So I
Mm,
care enough about my earache to go and get some help,
yeah,
and we have sort of grown into that, the fix of medication, because Western medicine, is very interwoven with
fixes.
pharmaceuticals. Yes,
Mm,
there's often, that's our expectation, and that effect would be the same
yeah,
whether that was the drug or that was a placebo. And I can
yeah,
see that, because as soon as you self-care in that way, your neurotransmitters would say, look, you're doing something really good for yourself. This is going to help. So
yeah,
there we go. Isn't
yeah.
that so clever, though?
It's
Isn't it
so
so
clever.
clever?
And this is where I kind of get a little bit on my soapbox because I have this really important message, I think, because society has kind of glamorized self-care, right? Okay, so
Yes.
self-care is obviously, I don't know, a spa day, or going to have your
Okay.
nails done, or buying a
Yeah.
new handbag. We've
Or
kind of,
buying supplements that are really expensive,
yeah, we've
or
kind of
yes.
worshipped at this idol of, I spend
Yeah.
enough money, I'm taking
Yeah.
care of myself. But
Yeah.
actually, I think we need to normalize it, get away from this glamorization and this worship,
Mm.
and say, actually, what we need to do is look after ourselves in a way that we know will be helpful. So we know that all the things that we talk about that make a difference to your metabolic health, we know that they have powerful effects just in general, right? But we also, if we keep telling ourselves, I'm looking after myself by eating
Yeah.
these vegetables, by
Yeah.
going for a walk at
Or walking
lunchtime,
to work, or
I
running up
am
the
looking
stairs,
after
or
myself.
yeah.
Yeah. And that is self care. And
And
that is
empowering.
really
Yeah.
empowering. Yeah.
Very.
So I think then we start to feel better, and you might
And then
feel
we
better
believe in
sooner.
ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you
So we
might
get
feel
more
better sooner than
confident.
the actual effect,
Yeah.
but it's crucial because once you can feel better, you'll keep going. And
So
that's
it's a
really
bit like the
important.
placebo effect of if you're thinking about the prescriptions that you gave to hold, so the person then is more confident the next time to think,
Yeah,
I'll wait, and actually all the things I learnt before, and I'm now more confident about using my own judgment here,
yeah,
rather than we have taught people, that they need to find a prescription for certain things,
yes, yeah,
because
yeah,
that's almost the way we've taught them that self-care works. But actually it doesn't. It's not all about that. It's a fascinating subject,
yeah.
absolutely fascinating. I think you could write a book about the placebo effect. And what I've really learned today that I didn't really understand, although of course I've often thought about the placebo effect and seen it in action, is
Hmm.
the actual neurotransmitting. There's a little
Yeah,
bit of
it does
there's a little
actually
bit
work.
of
Yeah.
brain stuff there that is physiological. And as you know, Nia, this is my favorite topic of all times, is how your physiology affects behavior or affects how you
Yeah.
feel, and how important that is in the long term. So this is
Mm.
my thing, really. If I had my life over, I would be a behavioral physiologist.
Yeah. Well,
I'm still
yeah, me
thinking
too.
whether I've got time, but
I just
time's
think it's
getting
so,
tight.
yeah, it's so important because it kind of pops that bubble that we have to rely on other people to fix our problems for us.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
it empowers you to change the narrative and say, actually, there are things that I can do to look after myself that will
yeah.
make me feel better and will improve my health in the long run.
And you can use that in parallel, as you say, with Western
Absolutely.
medicine. I
Of course you
mean,
can. Of course you
there's
can.
some fantastic bits of Western medicine I would never
Oh, no, no,
decry.
no. Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, if you had, I don't know, some serious disease, you could enhance how you live with things
Yeah.
by taking up that powerful self-care sort of mantle. So
Mm.
placebo and self-care have a link I wasn't necessarily aware of, but yes,
Mm.
that's exactly right. So a great rabbit hole, I have to say.
Yeah, even though I was at the time like furious that these things existed, but at the same
Yes.
time, you have to.
Yes.
You know, my patients would always come to me and say, "But it works for me," and I'd think,
Yes. What are you going to
"Okay."
argue with? What are you going to argue with that? When I
No.
was menopausal a long time back, I very nearly bought something. I went back a few times to see it again. Was
Ooh.
something very interesting that you sort of put into your knickers, and
Oh,
it did
oh!
something.
The
Do you remember
magnet.
that?
Yes, I do. Oh my
I nearly
goodness.
bought one. I was a bit desperate. You get a bit desperate. And it said
Yeah.
your hot flushes will decrease. I think it probably increased your libido. I don't know whether that was to do with the positioning of the device.
I don't know if that still is
No,
available.
I don't.
That's another rabbit hole for me this afternoon. I'm gonna go Google that.
Well, and I did know logically that this was a very unlikely scenario, but
Mm.
there was a bit to me that thought, but if other people have found this helpful, and there's all the testimonials, who am I
Yeah,
to
to
argue
judge.
about
Mm.
the science? Now I come from that sciencey background. So, if you can sell me something like that, there's a huge market out there, isn't there?
Mm, absolutely.
Oh,
But
well, another
anyway,
rabbit
yes.
hole for you. Thank you. That was really, really interesting.
Cool. All right, I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.